Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your husband's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if it feels completely hopeless right now. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about what to do when you're feeling rejected by your husband during pregnancy. My guest, Sue, had a breakdown in her marriage, even though she's a well-loved powerhouse relationship coach on the Laura Doyle campus, who has been practicing the 6 intimacy skills for many years. She decided to get coaching herself and manifested some big desires, including making her marriage hot again in more ways than one. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. That's coming up. But first, let's get to what to do when you're feeling rejected by your husband during pregnancy, because being pregnant is vulnerable. And if there's anything you want when you're getting ready to welcome a new baby, it's to feel secure about your future, to know that you're loved and desired, and that you'll be protected and taken care of. So pregnancy is a scary time to feel rejected, and feeling rejected by your husband always feels bad. Pregnancy messes with your body so much that you can also feel like you're not very attractive. And then he's less physically affectionate, so you could assume it's because you don't look hot anymore in your maternity pants. Or someone might tell you that you just feel rejected because your hormones are making you crazy. So now you're not just rejected, you're also unattractive and crazy. And it's all out of your control. So painful. But is that what's really happening? I mean, it's possible. But I know for me, sometimes when I feel especially vulnerable, that can trigger my steamroller mode. Laura Steamroller Doyle comes out and kind of just rolls over everybody. And this feels especially justified if there is something really important that I'm trying to make happen, and everyone else is annoying because they aren't on the same page. I've even gotten into steamroller mode about trying to end world divorce. I'm like, everybody else, get out of the way because I'm doing something really important and I don't need any help. Well, I do need help. But since I'm the only one who can do things the right way, never mind, I'll just do it myself. Needless to say, that is off-putting to practically everyone. My team, my husband, even to me. It's pretty unpleasant. But guess who's driving that steamroller? Trying to look tough. Scared little Laura. Underneath all that, I'm over my head. Like when my first book became a New York Times bestseller and a media sensation, and I got all these invitations to speak to some large live audiences with real people in them. And what they didn't know is that I'd never given a talk before. So I was terrified. And I got a book on how to be a public speaker, which just wasn't enough, was not cutting it. So then I contacted the author of the book for help, and she asked me some questions. And although I desperately wanted her help, instead I got my steamroller. I remember her saying, "So you reached out to me for help because you have too many people asking you to speak?" And I was like, "Yes, and I have to go. Goodbye." And I hung up. I could not receive her help. What does any of this have to do with feeling rejected during pregnancy? Well, being pregnant is full of purpose and passion. It takes a lot of energy. You have something important to prepare for with a non-negotiable deadline, and that is going to change your life. And some of it only you can do. And some things you can receive help on if you're open, if it's not too scary. So it may not be so much that your husband is rejecting you, but that you're rejecting your husband or steamrolling him, like I did with that speaker coach. You may be kind of protective, even towards your husband, but he's on your side. He may have the impression you don't need him or you don't want him. letting him see how scared you are, how much you desperately want his help and support instead of pretending that you have it all figured out. That's what it means to be vulnerable, which is what you are when you're pregnant. I'm reminded of a coach who talked about how her third pregnancy was outrageously luxurious because she was practicing the intimacy skills so well by then that it was a completely different experience from her first two pregnancies. Far from feeling rejected, she felt so supported to the point of being spoiled when she showed up vulnerable and receptive. So, if you're pregnant and feeling rejected right now, you could experiment with changing that by leaning into your vulnerability and letting your husband love and support you.
If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes.
My guest, Sue, had a breakdown in her marriage, even though she's a well-loved powerhouse relationship coach on our campus who's been practicing the 6 intimacy skills for years. She decided to get coaching herself, and she manifested some big desires, including making her marriage hot again in more ways than one. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Coach Sue, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm super excited that you're coming on. This is not the first time you've been on, so welcome back to the show. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. I am just so excited to be here a second time, a second round with you being interviewed. And I am just so excited because so much has happened since the first interview. So I love it. Love it.
And this is what we see, right? That it's it's an ongoing journey for all of us, including me. Absolutely. And there's still ups and downs, and we all need reminders. And so so it sounds like just learning about the 6 intimacy skills and practicing them. There was a breakthrough there, but it wasn't a one and done. It wasn't like, okay, now I'm good forever. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. That is so fair to say, because to me, this is a lifelong journey. I got the tools in my back pocket and I can pull them out whenever I need or want, right? Yeah. And I keep learning. I keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into really discovering myself and really getting to know my husband even more. So yeah.
Well, and you told your whole story on episode 24, and it's a fabulous story. So if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to episode 24. But more recently, and you've been a coach. You've been a coach. We were just saying, I think it's like our 10-year anniversary, yours and mine, right? Of hanging out together, maybe since we met.
Yes. And then I certified in, October of 2014. So next year I'll be really celebrating the certification. But this was September, this next month was when I went into relationship coach training. Yeah.
Okay. And certainly, as you shared in episode 24, you fixed your marriage. Things were a lot better. And then life continued to happen as it does. More is constantly revealed. So, what was going wrong?
I think the biggest thing that happened was I knew that I was creating this desire that I would love to have my husband home someday, to just have him, because he was an over the road truck driver. So I was a weekend wife, and I kind of labeled myself as that, right? I'm the weekend warrior. I'm the weekend wife. And I knew that deep down it would have, boy, what would it look like, right? What would it look like if my husband were home? Well, March of 2020 is when, boom, it really came to fruition. It was due to the COVID. It really was. And we both were challenged with that, as I know everyone was. And my company, my corporate, said, everybody go home. Everybody work from home in March of 2020. And at that time, I was really being a little vulnerable with my husband, because it was getting kind of scary for me. And he was going to go out to the big bad world out there, and he has to trade up his truck driving and have somebody else drive, and he stopping at the truck stops all the time and staying at a hotel all the time. There was a lot of extra seeing people and, having contact. And we really didn't know what it was all about, right? So there was a lot of fear everywhere.
Yes.
And he made the decision. I remember sitting there and we were hearing the news. And I said, oh, baby, I said, this is sounding really scary. I'm kind of feeling a little nervous and overwhelmed by this news. And he said, you know what? He said, I think I'm going to write to my boss, and I'm going to tell him that I'm coming off the road until this has been cleared up. And it was like, oh.
Careful what you wish for. Is that
boom, he was home. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So it was really, if I think about it, it's like we are now jumping into a new part of our life. We're going to be home with one another.
This never happened before. This is
it never happened before. We were together for 10 years, and he was always on the road. He was gone for 5 or 6 of the days. He'd make it home for a weekend, maybe a day, maybe 2, but then he would be off again, right? So it was here's the new journey that's happening in front of us. And so there was this change of life, that the skills, thank goodness I had the skills, because I had to kind of relearn them all over again, or practice them even deeper, right? Because they were my gosh, my lifeline. They were my lifeline to go to each and every day as he was home, and us getting used to each other being home. But boy, it's been an amazing experience, because what happened from there was I started getting more desire in my heart. And that desire was to, now that corporate America had me go home, I was like, this is kind of a good feeling. I kind of like working from home. I kind of like having my husband home a little bit, right? Even though we were, struggling, the respect wasn't there to the full degree, I would say. I was still in that place of wanting to fix his mood. That has been my longest journey, is how do I fix that mood, right? Yeah. And Laura, there was a time we went up to our cabin, or our timeshare, and we were sitting back and we were watching a movie, because there was nothing else to do when it's 20 below and in winter. And I went for a good walk because I needed to replenish my self-care. I knew that when we got there, I was like, I gotta get some outside time with myself. So I did that. Watched this movie, and I can't even tell you what movie it was, but I was in tears. I was just crying, because I you know me, I'm a vulnerable girl. I shed my tears.
Yeah.
I know they're a gift for me. So I have discovered that through your work, that they really are a gift. And so I'm connecting the dots on why is it that I'm always trying to fix his mood? Why is it that I get frustrated with myself because there I am trying to fix that again. He's having a moment, and he's frustrated with something, and he's elevating his voice, and I'm cowering, and I'm like, oh, what can I do to fix this? And it hit me when I was watching that movie, something connected the dots. And I realized that when I was a child, my dad would come home and he was a rageaholic. And I would run downstairs to the fridge that had all the beer in it. And I would run up and I'd give him a beer and go, here you go, Dad, every night after his work. And eventually I would hear him start to hum, or I'd hear him start to sing. And I heard that there I was controlling my father's mood. I could do it at an young age of 8, 9, 10. And I brought that with me in my marriage. It was a big, huge aha moment for me. And I just apologized. Oh my gosh, I apologized to my husband. I get it. I get why I'm doing this. And I see the connection from something way long ago. And I said, I apologize for trying to fix your moods. It isn't my place to do that. And he just came in so tender. And he's like, I don't want to be that person. And we just had this amazing, amazing intimacy. It was long. It was amazing. It was wonderful. So I share that story often as a coach for other women that are struggling with being on their husband's pages, of being on their, trying to fix their moods. And it just is really it's just an amazing story that I can share so vulnerably.
And this was your early training, right?
Yeah.
You, when you're 8 years old, you learned a life lesson of some kind, right? And it might have served you well, even when you were 8 or 9.
Exactly.
But it wasn't, and then it was just became a habit that didn't serve you. It became the malware, trying to make sure he was never frustrated or upset or angry, which of course you can't do. And so, and I think, I mean, I just love it. Like, here you are, you said there was respect had gone missing, and you're a coach, right? And you're like a big time coach. You're like powerhouse coach on the campus, right? So it's almost like, oh, that shouldn't be happening at our house, but it was happening at your house.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that you're sharing it with us, because I think, I know sometimes new coach graduates, they finish coach training, they go, okay, well, now I guess I'm supposed to be, I know, pretty perfect, close, 9 out of 10, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we're just always still learning and growing.
Absolutely. And it's so worth the ride, though. It is so worth the journey.
Right. What else are we going to do to just not, I don't know, just continue down the path of suffering, I guess is another option.
Yes.
But and I remember it being a big pain point that your husband was on the road a lot. And so I mean, I love how the pandemic just like shook so many things upside down, and it was one of your desires that he be there, and then he was there, and then maybe part of you wished he wasn't there so much, but he was. Right.
Yeah.
So,
It's true. I mean, to be honest, it was like, oh, he's still, he's in my face, right? It's like,
yeah.
And I knew at that time that it was like, I need to learn how to do self-care better. I need to learn how to create self-care around me and be able to really find self-care as my go-to, and be able to really also spark his hero gene. So that was also something, because I could see that he was feeling out of control because he didn't have a job to go to. He couldn't be a provider in the way he normally would be. So I was able to see that and be able to go, well, you know what? There's other ways to provide. And so he started cooking for me. He started doing cleaning. He's the kitchen guy. He does the cooking, he does the cleaning, and he would do the laundry. I mean, he stepped into a place of, this is what I can do while you're working. I can be your support. Yeah.
I love that.
And I filled him up. I was just so grateful because I could focus here in my office and serve and serve and serve and be able to help women and walk alongside them and know that there's a salad waiting for me at the end of the night. It was just so incredible.
That is incredible. And this kind of, it just reminds me of I always think about how in my marriage, I just wanted to get divorced. I wanted to get divorced, but I was, there was the wisdom of no escape, right? I was married and I was going to have to be really embarrassed if I got divorced. And then the relationship became, I like to think of it as like the dojo, the place where the learning happened, right? It was like my husband, John, is my mirror, my ballet bar that I can see like, oh, like, how's my leg's not straight or whatever. And your husband being home all the time gave you a lot more mirror, you had a lot more dojo time.
Yes.
And it became, so it was time to grow further.
It was time to grow further, deeper, and really take these skills to the next level. Yeah.
And so there was some suffering was happening, but you were able to really just turn it into the gold that you're having now. So what else? So this was a big desire and it came true. And then the desires started popping, it sounds like.
Yeah, it did. And things were starting to happen. So in the same year, in 2020, it was like I was really getting comfy being at home, but it was like I had boxes around me because I was an accountant, right? So there's boxes laying around me. It just felt really heavy. And I was really, ever since 2014, I was doing your work as the sideline. And something started stirring in me. And little Birdie maybe was helping me with that, little Coach Kathy.
Oh, little Coach Kathy Birdie?
Yeah, that little Coach Kathy Birdie. And it was like, what would it look like to do this, to fulfill my purpose fully, like really do this full time. And so that year I started really thinking about this and really I picked up your book, It'll Get As Good As You Can Stand, because that book helps me through any big desire that I have. I just pick that up and it just helps me get into that desire, helps me think about that desire, helps me, vision that desire. So I started doing that and I wrote a pros and cons list, Laura. It was so funny. One day I was spending my self-care out there on a lawn chair in the sun and just enjoying the breeze in the summer. And I started writing, okay, well, what's my pros? What if I do, what if I'm a campus coach? What if I'm working under Laura's wing full time? Because I love being under your wing. It's been my biggest desire. And I started going, wow, there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and this. And then I went to the cons list of, well, what would I be missing if I left corporate America? There was only one thing that came up. And it was, I'm the benefit earner. I'm the one that has been providing the benefits and the retirement plan and, those kind of things that corporate America gives you that security for, right? I felt secure in that job because of those things, but I knew it wasn't my fit. I knew that it wasn't truly who I wanted to be. And so that was the one last thing holding on, that I had fear. I had fear for letting go, because I saw that I started opening up my receiving muscles and I started saying yes to everything. And all of a sudden, just tons of things were coming in. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting the sign here that this is definitely something I should be really seriously taking into account, this desire. And so it was like, okay, that takes that away, the financial vision, that just solidified it. But it was still that benefits. How do I possibly think about these benefits? How could I do this? So I dabbled with, well, maybe I'll get a part-time job. Well, I'll flip it. I'll go in and do this work as a coach, and then I'll get a part-time gig to cover, the excess of having to pay for insurance, because insurance is so outrageously expensive. And so I went to Costco and I got a part-time job. And it was so funny because Kathy would go, so how's that part-time job going? And I'm like, oh, I went for orientation and then I went for one full day. And I remember working at a table that I was like, I don't really believe in what they want me to promote at this table. It was on flu shots. And I'm like, I really don't do that myself. So how am I trying to promote this? My soul isn't into it. So I'm like, gosh. And I went home and I said, Greg, what do you think? Because my husband was supporting me through this whole thing, by the way. He was like, I'm putting my desire out there to my neighbors, to my husband, to everybody, telling him I'm thinking about, giving up corporate America. I'm thinking about doing this. And people would either go, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that. Or they'd be like, wow, good for you. Right. So you have it from negativity to positivity, and everything in between when you put your desire out there, right?
Some people get scared for you, like, how could you do that?
They do. Yeah. And I love them. I love that they were scared for me and that they
want to
cared
protect
about me.
you.
And, they wanted to make sure I was safe. But then there was also that, but I could do this, right? So it was just that last moment of making the plunge, of really believing in the work here, believing that I can do this in business too, and having faith over fear. And so I said, Greg, how do you feel about me giving up that quick little job I just got? Of course, they were happy to get me because I got experience and I have accounting background, and they wanted to put me on the customer service line, and give me more responsibility.
You'd be great at that, but yeah.
And I just saw things that I just wasn't happy with. Like the manager, she'd pull her mask down and then sneeze and then put her mask back on. And I'd be like, okay, that's not being really safe. And I'd be like, oh. So I was just listening. I was listening for the universe to give me signs, because that's what I do. And I just thought, oh my gosh. So I just said, and I was getting a message saying that this is your moment to have transformation. What would it look like to just ease into this, just relax into this? Because I could tell that I was still having fear, right? Financial fear, benefits fear. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I need to listen to that message. And so I chose to just go all in, and I gave up the part-time job, and I just said, okay, I think I'm just supposed to ease into this. So I'm just going to do that. Not even probably within the week, I think it was, all of a sudden I got somebody. We were working with a gentleman for Greg's retirement. He was turning 65, so he had to get on Medicare. And that gentleman, I'm talking to him, and I said, I don't know. I got denied for having premiums through the MNsure. I said, I don't know what to do. And he goes, let me make a call for you. I said, oh gosh, that would be so wonderful. Thank you so much. And it was filled with gratitude. called me back a couple hours later. He said, Sue, he goes, nobody told you, but you've been eligible. You've been approved to get on the government subsidy, and you're only going to be paying like maybe $108 a month for insurance for the two of you. And I went, what? There was the safety net. I had faith over fear, and I decided to put my foot over the cliff, and there it was. It came through. I mean, it's just amazing
A
when
miracle.
you relinquish control and surrender. So that's what happened next. And it has been an amazing journey. I gave up. I put in my 2-week notice. That was another thing. I said, oh, would you take me part-time? Oh, absolutely not. They wouldn't
At
think
Costco.
of, yeah, they wouldn't know at my regular full-time
Your
job.
corporate job. Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
They said,
Gotcha.
absolutely not. We don't do that. So I said, okay, well, here's my 2-week notice. So I went ahead and just had faith over fear that everything was going to work out. And it has, and it's more than worked out. I am so happy. I'm fulfilling my passion. And it's just been, I can take that to my husband and I can say, oh, baby, I can't believe this. In fact, I did, Laura. And just it was in 20 or 21. And I said, Greg, I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe where I'm at right now. I'm fulfilling my purpose in life. I said, I am so happy. And he's just grinning from ear to ear.
Oh,
He's just like, baby, that is so awesome. And then he goes, but wait a minute, I have a purpose in life too. And I went, oh, well, tell me all about it, right? I was just like leaning in going, well, what is it? And he shocked me. He goes, well, my purpose in life is to make you happy. And I just, Laura, there was always, I knew you always said it. You always said it, that men want to make you happy, right? But I was in it for about 80, 85, 90%, right? But that extra 10%, when he said that, I was all on board. I get it. It was just there. He was happy for me. He saw my happiness. He saw that I could make myself happy. I was responsible for it. And he just wanted to add to it.
wow.
It was amazing. Yeah.
What a great moment. What a goosebump moment.
Yeah.
And so that's his purpose, and he feels successful at it too, to make you happy.
And he's not working. He was unemployed at this whole time.
Yeah. Right. And so, and so you're the sole breadwinner at your house. I mean, he's retired. He's retired.
He's retired now. So
okay.
Yeah, I had to bring vulnerability there too. Because all of a sudden our savings was dwindling, and I was like, I was feeling a little overwhelmed, and I brought it to him. And I said, babe, I said, you know what? I'm getting a little nervous. I'm getting a little overwhelmed, and I don't want to be the sole income earner. And he went, oh, well, I don't want you to have to feel that way. He goes, why don't I open up the Social Security system and see what it would be like if I were to just pull early here. I could do it because I'm 65, but we were waiting for him to be 66 in 4 months for the full retirement.
Gotcha.
He went in and he looked at it, he calculated, he problem solved it, and he goes, it's only going to be a few dollars difference. Why don't I just go ahead and apply now? And I went, whatever you think. It was awesome. Yeah. So he's bringing his contribution in by being retired. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, pretty magical. I mean, prior to March of 2020, probably pretty hard to imagine that your husband would be home with you all the time. You would give up corporate. You'd be doing this work as your sole source of income, and he's there with you all the
Yeah,
time. You guys
every
are both
day.
there.
Yep.
And it was a little stressful at first, it sounds like, but what's it
Yeah.
like now having your husband there every day?
Well, I want to bring in just one more
Oh,
stress
sure. Yeah,
because
yes.
it goes with the desire, but it also was a stress because I still wasn't deep enough into respect yet. So
Okay.
again, I guess I just want to put out there to the women that, there's levels of depth in these skills. And I just love it that there's this journey that it's not about perfection, it's about progress, right? It's about process and being able to give yourself grace in the journey, right? So I put a desire out there last year that I was feeling kind of isolated working from home in the winter time because the winter, boy, we get so much snow, and I'm starting to see that, ooh, I can't really walk on those snowy, icy roads anymore because I slipped once and fell and, bumped my tailbone. And so I'm like, it's getting a little scarier to be out there. I used to walk all the time, whether it was a blizzard, 20 below, it didn't matter. I walked. But as I'm aging here, I'm starting to realize I have limitations. So I I decided that this desire was bubbling up for me that I wanted to be in a warmer climate for winter. I just would love to be in a warmer climate for winter. I mean, I've got to enjoy in the fall, come to California. I've got to enjoy other things, but I really thought, wow, what would it be like to be somewhere warm in the winter instead of being here in Minnesota where it's cold and snow and blizzards. And so I started envisioning that, and I brought it to my husband, and he said, really? And I said, yeah, I'd really love to find a place that's warmer climate in the winter. And the first thing he said to me, Laura, was, what about your family? Because that was my desire from 10 years ago. It's why we landed in this home where we're at. It's 2 miles away from my oldest brother.
Mm.
And I wanted the desire to be able to be close to my family. So here he is hanging on to this desire for 10 years. And he goes, what about your family? And I just went,
So sweet.
how often do they come over in the winter? And he goes, you got a good point.
Nobody
It's
leaves the
like
house, probably,
nobody
right?
leaves the house, right? And he said, okay. He said, well, let's think about that. Let's consider it. And then I, put out another desire. I'm like, I was looking on the Airbnb, and I said, Arizona sounds like a warm place to visit. And he's like, I got tons of friends down there. He's got all these musician friends that are everywhere in the world. And it was like amazing. We booked an Airbnb for a whole month down in Arizona, and we just we just went there. But in that process of going there, this is where the respect, I was a mere mortal woman. I was driving one of our episodes, one of the days I was driving, and I remember him going, there's somebody behind us. I said, yeah, I see him. I'm driving. I'm like, I got it, babe. I got it. He goes, no, there's somebody behind us, and they're getting a little close. Well, he's a truck driver, right? So he's watching everything that's happening around him because that's what truck drivers do. Good ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's being very cautious and going, I think what you need to do is you need to slow down. And he reached over and he put my flashers on, and I'm sitting there going, oh, you're coming into my paper here.
Yeah. Kind of
And I'm like,
controlling. Yeah.
yeah, he's controlling the situation. And I'm like, ooh. And I'm like, I got this, instead of realizing, oh my gosh, he's my safety guy. He's starting to see that guy's just getting too close to my bumper. And he did turn off and went away, but it was too late because I could feel my husband's frustration because I wasn't receiving. I wasn't receiving at that moment his knowledge, his wisdom, his precaution, his
His
safety,
protection.
his
Yeah.
protection.
I wanted to protect.
And it kind of started rolling down our day because later that afternoon, then we're in the top of Arizona and all of a sudden we're having snow. And it's like, wait a minute, we left Minnesota in January to not hit snow. And we're getting these huge little blizzards that are going on. And I'm trying to keep up with the traffic and the semis are going by me. I'm getting more and more nervous and vulnerable. And I'm like, baby, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And so we pulled over. But by then it was like both our moods were heightened. Both of us were in that mode. And we had a blow up. We had a big blow up. And he was like, his final words was, because I did apologize, but I knew that I hadn't had the time to go to self-care. I hadn't had an opportunity to find self-care in the car. So I was like halfway authentic with my apology. And he came out with a heart message that I didn't realize. He said, I wish you would let me have my emotions. You never let me have my emotions. And I was just like, wonder what he means by that. It's like, that's a heart message. And I had to dig. But what I realized was I was always guarded. I was always defensive, reactive. And anytime he did have emotions, because men, they have anger, they have frustration, they bring it up and it feels so big for us, right? It's just big and scary. And I realized that, oh my gosh, my respect was just out the window that day, all the way. And so when we came back from Arizona a month later, I brought my vulnerability girl with me. And when he had another meltdown, it was like, oh, I hear you, babe. I'm going to give you a little time for you to have your emotions. And I'm going to just step outside the car. And then I came back in and he's like, this is what happens to me. And he wanted to bring it forward again. And I just put my hand on his shoulder. I just said, babe, I love you. And I know you've got this. Whatever it is that's going on for you, I know you've got it. And I just love you. And we started off and he just deflated. And it just felt so good. I was like, that's what I needed. I needed to show up with empathy and compassion and,
Trusting
yeah,
him.
and trusting him with his own paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You must have felt so good, so proud, and like so relieved too.
So
Right?
relieved and
Like,
so understanding the depth of vulnerability, the depth of respect. And yeah, it was just, and ever since then, it's just been, I just feel like I'm on this highest rung of the ladder, right? Yeah. It just feels so good.
there's a good view from up there. It sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I
a great
love
way of
it.
saying it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, wow. Okay. So, yeah. So it sounds like you and your husband are closer than ever.
It feels that way. Yeah. It
Wow.
does.
So you're just living the dream, which is the words behind you I see right behind you. It says dream. So you're
Yes.
just dreaming,
Yes. It's my
honoring these
dream.
desires. Yeah. And you gave up corporate, you're a full-time coach, you get out of Minnesota for the winter, you go to Arizona. I mean, and you're having this wonderful connection and some adventures.
Yeah. And it doesn't end there
Tell me.
because we're actually moving to Arizona now. We are actually making the big move to leave Minnesota and get out of the winters for good.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And have a swimming pool bias instead. Just go into a 55 plus community and enjoy that life. We're on a whole new adventure in our lives right now because Greg did retire, and I have a beautiful business thanks to you that I can go anywhere with this.
You could go anywhere. You can work from anywhere in the world. And you do. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And I got to, my other desire was to help other coaches build their businesses. And so I got to go with Coach Kathy to Australia and New Zealand. And next year I'm going with a girlfriend, and we're going to go to the Netherlands. And I'm going to see family again because I have a brother over there. Everything just keeps on happening. Yeah.
See, your life is unrecognizable from
10 years ago.
From 10
Yeah.
years ago. Yeah.
It's so true.
Wow.
And I give my husband thanks because now my new spouse fulfilling prophecy for him is he's my accountability partner. If it weren't for him, Laura, I wouldn't be doing all these things today. He's my accountability partner. If it wasn't him saying, I'm falling out of love with you, I'm out of here, it never would have, this would have never developed. I just see that. I never would have looked at myself and changed for what I wanted to be. Yeah.
Amazing.
I see that now.
Amazing.
I see it clearly. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so Coach Sue, from where you are, like 10 years down the road of practicing skills and really just finding your groove with them, and living the dream, like, what is your tip for somebody who maybe is stuck in Minnesota winters in an accounting corporate job that isn't quite a fit for her, and is still experiencing like blow-ups in the car, and she wants what you have, where you're traveling, you're in the sun, you have a swimming pool, your husband's mission, his purpose in life is to make you happy, and she wants to just really live her passion and serve other women. What's your best tip?
My best tip really, when 10 years ago, I had a desire to find a community of women that could stand alongside me because I couldn't do it alone. And that dream came true. And so I think my biggest tip is to don't give up your dreams, don't give up your desires, and stand for yourself and stand for your marriage. There's hope there. There is a lot of hope there. If that is what you desire, to have a great marriage, to have more intimacy, to have better connection, to go on adventures with your husband, that it is possible. But for me, it was finding the right path. And Laura, your book, back even before 10 years, I would say it was at least 15 years, at least, if not more. Surrendered Singles was my first pathway into your skills. And it brought me the right man. And Greg was that was what was produced from that book, from reading that book and finding my true desire after 2 failed marriages, and finding my desire, wanting to be married again and have a healthy relationship. That's where it began. And then it moved into, I put that on the shelf, and my marriage 9 months into it fell off the wagon. And I found the surrendered wife by dragging my husband to the marriage counselor, right? And that just found this, and my coach training, and becoming a coach and fulfilling my purpose. And So it's a community that has really the tip, I think, for me is to find your your path to a community that can help you, that can stand for you and
Mhm.
help you grow.
I love that. Yeah. I love our community too. That is my secret sauce also. My secret, I want to say my secret weapon. That's not quite right, but it's my secret to my strength.
The
So
magic wand.
the magic wand. Yeah, it's my magical powers, my superpowers, source of my superpowers. There we go. So
Yes.
and you just made me there's something else I want to ask you, since you're so good at manifesting your desires. What first of all, how did you figure out those desires?
Mm,
How did you
wow. That's a great question. I think I think they just that's a great question. I think it was just a matter of sitting down and dreaming. And what I think I used to do back in the past was I had a story in my head that my dreams can't come true. That I could dream all I wanted, but it wasn't reality. Oh, that's not reality. I had to flip that perspective and really understand that I do have the power to dream, to desire, and it wasn't about just telling my husband that I want something. It was about going through him and around him, and yeah, he just happened to be in the room, right? But I was bringing my desires farther up. I was bringing them to the universe. That's how I changed my mindset, because I knew that the universe was listening. I just knew, because I had seen it in my past. I had seen how little things had developed. One time, I was living by myself. I had my own little home. I barely was scraping through. And one day it was like one of those fear days of, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my utilities. I was that close to having them shut me off. And then the mail came, and I literally opened up this envelope like, what's this all about? I pull it out, and it's a check for almost the exact same amount that I needed to pay for my utilities. And I went, I
um,
forgot about you. I forgot about you. You've been watching. You've got my back. And it really just going back to asking myself, what has happened in the past for me that I have been able to get what I wanted, right? And really kind of take a look and see that things do happen, things do develop. Create a dream board. I love creating a dream board, putting pictures on there from magazines and sayings, and literally they come true. They're just like, boom, they appear. I've got 2 dream boards. One's already filled and completed, and everything on there has come true. And it's like, so I created a new one.
time for new dreams. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it's that, just believing, being able to have faith over fear,
Choose your
that
faith.
things
Yeah.
they can develop. They really can. You have the power to empower yourself to believe in good, to believe in good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I bet, and having a community that stands for you.
Oh, just to walk alongside you, they can believe with you, right? They can
Yeah.
stand for those desires going,
So, like,
I know it's going to be there for
you can
you.
do it.
You
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what if you could go back in time and tell Sue what you know now? I don't know. Let's say from February of 2020.
Yeah.
Like, what would you, what do you know now?
Wow.
You would just tell her.
So much has happened. Oh, man. You know, just, just, I think just hang on for the ride.
You wouldn't
on
change
for the
change
ride.
anything, probably, right?
I wouldn't change anything for the world. I believe that breakdown was for a purpose. I always look at the pain that I've gone through, there's been a purpose for it. And I've learned how, with these skills, I've learned how to walk through fear. I mean, my gosh, I'm the one of the group coach leaders on the campus, right? I remember when it was like, would you like to give this a try? And I was so scared to get on camera, but I did it anyway. I knew there was a huge fear blocking me. And I just said, yes, I think, yes. And I did it anyway. And it was amazing. And yes, of course, no one let me do that by myself. I had everyone standing for me. You were standing for me. Kathy was standing for me. Coach Stephanie was standing for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't alone.
No.
I was never alone on this journey. That was what gave me strength and courage and bravery to walk through every fear that I have encountered. Yeah.
Amazing, Sue. Well, I'm so glad we found each other and we get to be on this delightful journey, thrilling journey, gratifying journey together. And you are so inspiring. You know, it's no surprise that you're such a beloved coach on the campus.
Thank you.
And yeah, congratulations on what you've created. Yeah, you're awesome.
Thank you. I thank you, Laura. Every day I am so thankful for meeting you, for getting out. Remember I don't know if you remember, the first email was like, well, what would you think about doing a coach? And I just was so grateful to you, but there's no way I could be a coach because I am not consistent with these skills. I'm like, I'm failing. And it was so cute because you were like, that's what coach training is so great at, because you can come in and really learn, I was like, oh, well, that's a good way of looking at it.
It'd be like if I said, oh, do you want to come and take piano lessons together or something? They'd be like, oh, I'm not a good piano player. It'd be like, yeah, well, this is how you get better. Right?
Yeah, this is how you get better. Practice. Experimenting.
Yeah. Get some support and instruction. So yeah. Well, and it really paid off. So
it did. And there's looking back, there's no regrets. I mean, this is the life. I still pinch myself today because I'm home. I'm doing work. I'm in a little office in my own little room.
It's purple. Yeah. Your office is purple with big flowers on the wall. Right. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, thank you, Laura. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for finding me, or me finding you. I don't know how it all started, but I tell you, it just was meant to be. That's all I know.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so inspiring.
Thank you, Laura.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest.
Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, we're going to talk about how to handle the silent treatment with dignity. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that I had to change credit cards. The one I used expired, and I don't know where I put the new one.